let's dive right into it. So, as we head into 2016, some of the subjects we're going to talk about are mergers and acquisitions. We're going to talk about the decline of some of the bigger companies and what some of the bigger players are doing in the industry when it comes to consolidation and what you're saying, as well as some of the big news that happened and big data and the Internet of Things. So let's dive right into it, Alan, and let's talk about two major CMS industry acquisitions in 2015. One of them was Episerver and the merger with Ectron. You know, to be completely accurate, that happened at the very end of 2014. So, but there were a lot of repercussions with this merger for 2015. What were they?
Oh my gosh, I think there were a lot of repercussions, as you say. I think the big one was, frankly, in terms of money, about valuations. They got a pretty decent valuation, and at the time, I think a lot of people were saying, oh my God, they've been undersold. No, guys, that's what these companies are worth today. So they did okay, but I mean, that has now set the tone, right? So anybody else who's out there looking for a buyer, people who are looking out there to buy, they know what the price range is now. So that's pretty sobering for a lot of people in this sector.
So when it comes to the industry, if you're out there, as you've always been, looking for acquisitions or looking to merge with someone or looking to be bought up, I think that the lesson you're saying here is that 2015 taught us that you may not be worth as much as you think you are.
Absolutely. I mean, 2015, just to be clear, was the biggest year for tech M&A, as far as I'm aware, that we've ever had, but certainly going right back to the dot-com era. And yeah, there's more. And why? Because there's bargains out there. People are spending, they're buying. These things are affordable for once.
So let's talk about another merger, and that was Dell's $67 billion takeover bid of EMC. What's the big news out of that?
Well, of course, that's the one that completely contradicts me, because that really was a high price, right?
Right.
$63,000 million. Can you imagine that? Right? It's crazy. No, I mean, that's huge for our industry. I mean, you know, within EMC, there is that company called Documentum. You know, it's not really a company, but that division in there called Documentum, which I think just everybody's heard of, right? People who don't even know our sector, they've probably heard of Documentum. It's just that name. So what's going to happen to them? Are they going to now spin off by themselves? You know, what's going to happen to them? And again, that's one of those things. What is happening? It's consolidation. Is there a role for these people anymore? You know, do they need to be part of a bigger story? So I think the Dell EMC thing, fascinating, a very high risk acquisition, merger if you want, because it's really closer to a merger, I think, than an acquisition. I think we're going to see that one play out over the years. It's just too big to know at this point what something like that is really going to...
You said that 2015 was the biggest year for M&E in the CMS space. What other mergers or acquisitions do you want to point out that had a significant effect on the industry or will? I don't want to tease, let's tease what's coming up in 2016, but what other acquisitions are noteworthy that, in your opinion?
Well, I think there was a bunch. I mean, particularly if we look at the broader digital marketing discussion, I mean, Oracle continued to buy up companies, Salesforce made a couple of acquisitions, Sprinkler, you know, just a startup itself a few years ago, started to buy, and then on the file sync and share world, which is sort of adjacent, but nevertheless, you know, still part of our world, content management. We saw the start there of things tidying up too. Autotask bought Sooner. There was a number of acquisitions there, but there was also in the document management world, I think the big one there was Lexmark buying Kofax. I mean, all of these players who were at each other's throats, they're all trying to find a home and find people to be friendly with.
We mentioned Dell and EMC, two major players, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about two other major players. And again, we'll talk more about this in 2016 when we look ahead. But Adobe and Microsoft, clearly what they do has an effect on a lot of industries. But when it comes to the CMS industry, what did they do in 2015? And again, tease us what they might be thinking for 2016.
Well, you make a very good point. These two are... I wouldn't say they're the biggest, the most important, but they're certainly up there, right? I mean, Adobe, I tell you what they did well. They made a lot of money. I mean, you know, they made a lot of money. This is a very profitable company. They've proven this model, if that makes sense. You know, they have said, look, we can pull this together. We can make money, so why can't you? Now, I say that because a lot of people are not making money. All right, they're spending a lot of marketing, but you know, they're a long way off profitability. So Adobe's really set a bar there. Microsoft's going to respond. They've got to, right? And my prediction for 2016, and watch me be proven wrong in 2017, but I'm pretty sure Microsoft is in the market to buy a web content management company and probably some other smaller bolt-ons in the digital marketing space. Of course, they have the resources to build their own, but again, come back to what I said earlier, why bother? There's some bargains out there, there's some great tools to buy at a good price.
Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group is joining us on this edition of CMS Connected. We're talking about recapping 2015 in the CMS industry and looking ahead to 2016. We talked about major mergers and acquisitions in 15. Let's also talk about Gartner, because Gartner's Magic Quadrant sets the tone often for the entire year, and people always refer to it. We mentioned Adobe, but probably the big news out of Gartner's 2015 quadrant was Sitecore, according to Gartner, taking over the top spot of Adobe.
Yeah, I mean, this is a red rag to a bull, really, the Gartner Magic Quadrant. I mean, let me first of all say, as you always say just before you go and attack something, I have great respect for the people at Gartner. I actually know many of these people personally.
Which means you have no respect.
No, I do. I actually genuinely do. But what is the Magic Quadrant? I don't quite get it, okay? I mean, if you are going to buy technology, why are you looking at that? That's not going to help you, okay? It's not going to help you. But, you know, for industry insiders like ourselves, it's a great tool. We look at that and we say, okay, who's doing well, who's not, right? It's not a buyer's tool. Absolutely, clearly not. Sitecore's been doing well the last few years. Why not? But, you know, what's the metrics for this? You know, I don't really get it.
All right, so let me stop you for a second, because, no, it's fair to question where it comes up, but let's be honest. It is, the Gartner Magic Quadrant is, if it's not the gold standard, it is definitely referred to in the gold standard.
Okay. It absolutely is.
So if it's not a buyer's tool, right, let's talk about what it is, and again, let's look at 2015. So what's significant is it that Gartner's Magic Quadrant named Sitecore to take over for Adobe? What repercussions did that have in the industry?
Well, if we're being really honest, not many repercussions. Okay, I mean, I think for Sitecore, that's fantastic, right? I mean, what an endorsement. That's a fantastic thing. I mean, if we look at Adobe's numbers and their trajectory, it would seem that nobody's really taken any notice. So again, I think we just have to be real about this. With the Magic Quadrant, by the way, I'm going to contradict myself now. It shouldn't be a buyer's tool. Is it? Yes. Okay. Right? People do say, I will have the top 4 out of the Magic Quadrant on my shortlist. That's not a good way of doing it, folks. But anyway, so for Sitecore, that is going to bring in more business for them. I mean, it's just a great thing, and many would kill for it. For somebody like Adobe or an Oracle or a Microsoft or an IBM, they don't really care that much.
So let's talk about, before we let the Magic Quadrant go, some of the other companies who were movers or shakers in it last year. Acquia, SDL, those are 2 companies that have always been on a rocket ship heading in a direction, and it was a big year for Acquia, wasn't it?
It was a very big year for Acquia, and for the release of Drupal 8 there, I mean, this was huge. That could have really gone very badly wrong for them. I mean, they've been waiting. That's been, in preparation, ready for launch, whatever, for a long, long time. It opens a lot of doors for Acquia to go out there and get some more business in, and it also keeps them on the map. But, I mean, the reality is in our CMS world, talking about consolidation, you're right. I mean, it's the same players. It's SDL, it's Acquia, it's Episervice / Electron, right? And I mean, people like Hippo are still around, but we've got hundreds of people in this space, but now we're starting to consolidate around probably, 10?
And also with the Magic Quadrant, we started this whole look back at 2015 with the Electron Episerver merger. They both, for whatever it's worth, in the 2015 Gartner Magic Quadrant, went from the visionaries categories and squeaked in as the leaders. What do you make of both of them squeaking into the leaders category in the Magic Quadrant after the merger between the 2 of them?
Yeah, well, again, where somebody gets placed is indeed magical, right? It's a mystery to all of us. We're not quite sure how it works. But, I mean, I think, to be fair, I think they're 2 decent companies. They're now owned by, a firm that wants to make something of this. There's probably going to be some more acquisitions coming into it. I think it's a pretty positive story, all in all. Whereas you had 2 lonely people out there try and do the best they could. They've got some money now. They've got some friends.
So now that you've finished ripping apart Gartner's Magic Quadrant, I mean, you grew up in England, right?
I did grow up.
Didn't they tell you when you looked into the sausage, don't look behind the doors in the factory?
You know, we are probably the last warring nation. The polite veneer is literally that. It's a veneer.
Yeah, you're dispelling all of that about the English. All right, let's go to some other news for 2015. We're recapping 2015 in the CMS industry with Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group on this edition of CMS-Connected. We thank you for being a part of it. Enterprise content management, the ECM market is expected to grow from 24.6 billion in US dollars to 59 billion by 2020. What do you make of that trend, that news that came out that ECM is about to grow so exponentially?
I don't believe a word of that.
Okay.
I think that number is just spectacular. How you get to a number like that, I do not know. I mean, I literally do not know. Now, you know, my career has been very much closely associated with ECM, and full disclosure, I'm on the board of AIM, which is the industry organization which, you know, represents this sector. Look, ECM is not going away. It will continue to grow. There is a need for it. But again, I mean, it's an industry that's having some tough times. People like Box and Dropbox have come along and said, hey, look, we can do that same thing really, really cheap. Thanks, guys. I mean, you know, it's going through a period of consolidation as well. I mentioned Kofax, Lexmark. You know, there's a lot of M&A activity there. Again, is it going away? No. Is it a big industry? Yes. Will it continue to grow? Yes. But I don't know how you get to numbers as big as that. Well, that just seems a little bit.
So market research came out in 2015. There were many articles about this, and let me just read from part of it. Yeah. The major forces driving the market, the ECM market size and the growth, are the growing need for content management solutions in organizations, the necessary requisite for streamlining business operations, and the rising trend to reduce the total cost of ownership through content management. I think you made a great point as we were preparing for this show that companies and organizations are not looking to buy a content management system necessarily. They're looking to solve problems, right? So does that point that you made, does that dispute, you think, the trend in ECM?
I think we just, does it dispute it? I'm not sure. But I mean, the point is here, if you're a traditional document management vendor, nobody's interested in you. It's not sexy, right? It's boring. It's about documents and scanning and stuff like that. Well, guess what? I don't know about you, but everywhere I turn, you apply for a mortgage, you go to a bank, you know, your kid goes to a new school. Have you seen how much paperwork's involved? Like, there's business there. This is serious, solid business. It's not very exciting, okay? But to get to $50 billion, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful of this company. I just don't know how you get to such a big number, because that just seems a little off.
So those are hopeful.
I think they're very hopeful, but even so, people are still driving nice cars and doing well.
All right, so let's talk about some of the technology buzz that came out of 2015, or some of the terms. And two of the big ones are big data, which wasn't new in 2015, but took on a new meaning, and also IoT, the Internet of Things. So big data, first of all. What's changed with data, specifically in CMS for 2015? And again, I know it's hard not to get into predictions for 2016, but what changed with big data, or what was amplified with big data for 2015 in this industry?
You know, that's genuinely a tough one, because I think what has happened is there's an understanding now that there is a real thing called big data, depending on how you do that.
Tomato.
Whatever. But I mean, you know, there is a big world out there of petabytes of data that possibly have something amazing inside them, right? Most companies just don't deal with that. That's not the reality of them. What they want to do is mine what they actually have in their databases on their stored drives, you know? So I think there's a dose of reality has come into big data that, you know, yeah, maybe there's great insights to be had there, but the cost of getting them, is it really a good business case?
Well, to me, let me make a statement and tell me if you agree. When I look back at 2015, and I did not grow up in the industry like you did, but from sitting here with Scott and just learning from osmosis with all the conversations we had during the year, when it comes to big data, I see two big changes. One is there are no silos anymore between business data and personal data, because we all do business on our cell phones and our social channels and all that unstructured data and structured data. Those transactions, those silos have been broken down. That's one trend that I've seen. So businesses need to adapt when it comes to that. The other thing that I've seen in the CMS industry is that, again, the silos, marketing, sales, customer service, you name it, all the different lines of business within your organization, the data needs to be consolidated. It needs to be in one repository for everybody to get to, which is almost an impossibility to get to, but it does need to be there, doesn't it? That has changed and will continue to change CMS systems exponentially, in my opinion. Am I right or wrong?
I think you're wrong. But no, I mean, I hear where you're coming from. I don't fundamentally disagree with you. I think the reality is it's really hard to do that.
Right.
I mean, you take two basic, simple databases and get them to talk to one another. It's a big job. And then suddenly you want all this data coming in from Twitter to make sense as well. It's hard. It's really hard to do. No, you're right in principle. That is exactly what people want to do. And I think mentally, people have made that step. It's all data, right? It's all data and we need to make sense of it. But getting there to that point where you can invest a bit of money and get something back which is equal to more, if you like, right? You know, I invest $10, I want 20 back. If I'm not getting 20 back, I'm not doing it.
Right.
It's hard.
Right.
It's really hard, and I think we're going to see that pan out over the next 5 to 10 years.
So again, I think you make a great point. Whatever we can disagree about the trends and this and that, but you're talking about what we should really be looking at is why are you doing this, and what's the real value of you doing that?
That's my
Because everybody wants a 360-degree view of the customer and have real-time data and create a real-time picture. But why? What's the value for
that's the great question. Why? Because those people who the big organizations out there, the Coca-Cola of this world, the Nikes of this world, they've invested huge. And don't get me wrong, I know they're smart people and they're doing smart stuff. But often you get that 360-degree view of the customer and you go, right, and what do we do now, right? Yeah, I mean, so again, what questions do I need to ask? How does that translate back into the business? How do I generate more leads? How do I close more leads, right? Basic stuff, hard to do.
All right, so let's talk about the Internet of Things. First of all, for the CMS industry specifically, what's your definition of the Internet of Things and how it applies to the CMS industry?
It's starting to apply to the CMS industry, but if we look at what the Internet of Things actually is, I mean, okay, it's literally what it says, yes? So we have sensors, we have microchips, we have RFID tags, whatever it is. We've got something sending us data from objects, right? Wherever they are, be that a handset or a fridge, yeah? And everybody seems to refer to the fridge for whatever reason. We've got these intelligent fridges. I don't know why you need one, but whatever. That is a really big deal, apparently. So, I mean, again, this is actually not that new, okay? We've actually had this stuff for a long time. People are now starting to find the business cases for it, right? So, I mean, I can remember back, I think literally about 15 years, where a major retailer was putting RFID tags into baseball caps and sweatshirts and stuff because they wanted to know where people went with these things. Well, you know what happened? They got flooded with data, they didn't know what to do with it, and it didn't help their business. So now we're getting to that point where people are making more intelligent decisions, right? So for the CMS world, you're right, it's a flood of new data telling us things about our customers, what they're doing with our products. And I don't think the CMS world really knows what to do with it yet.
We'll tease it for our 2016 predictions, but how has the ability to gather data, specifically from the car and the home, to mention two things, how has the Internet of Things changed the industry, if at all, for 2015, and tease us for what might be ahead in 2016?
At this point, I don't think it has, but I think it will, right? Okay. I mean, so that technology has transformed the automobile industry, definitely, right? But if we look at the CMS industry, we've got to catch up. We've got to catch up. We're not quite there yet.
Again, we are reviewing 2015 in the CMS industry. I'm Butch Stearns. He's Alan Pelz-Sharpe from Digital Clarity Group. We've been talking about trends in 2015. We're going to have our vendor spotlight coming up with Amy Martin in just a little bit. She is going to look into Sitefinity, and then we'll be back to look at a look ahead to 2016. Let's finish the recap of 2015 with another buzz term, but it's not a buzz term. People have talked about it forever. Omni-channel digital experience. And what I find interesting about this when it comes to the CMS industry is that your platform, your service, your solution now needs to be customer-centric and addressed towards, and I'm speaking from a marketer's perspective, but it really needs to, again, align all your lines of business. No longer can the first interaction you have with a customer be with customer service and a complaint. It's in the research phase when customers are out there doing that. So I guess the question becomes, while companies in this industry pursue the holy grail of omni-channel digital experience across the full customer journey. What happened in 2015 to get us to that point? Or what are some of the things, the steps that happened in omni-channel digital experience that are changing the industry?
Well, I think what's changing is the way people think about it, as you described, right? There's a different perspective around the customer. So, I mean, I often talk about the digital supply chain, right? Because it's all well and good knowing something about the customer, but, you know, can I make something to demand? Can I actually get it to the store? Can I get it to their house? So, you know, there's a whole new way of thinking coming into our industry. Front end to back end, the whole thing. Now, it started off in our world around the customer experience, but now we're realizing that's a limited view, right? Happy customers are great. Ones who spend a lot of money, they're even better. So, you know, how do I actually now go back, figure out what they want, build it in time, deliver it in time, get it, you know, et cetera, right? The whole supply chain. So I think what's actually happened in this past year has been that. There's been a flip in the way we think. There's a broader understanding of where we need to get to, and soberingly, the scale of the work ahead of us. It's hard.
So when it comes specifically to the industry, the CMS industry, how good a job or what steps did the industry take in providing a more comprehensive offering to get a complete digital experience around the customer?
Right.
Were there great strides made in 2015?
I don't know if there was great strides, but I think there were sensible strides. I mean, if we look at somebody like Oracle, they're building out a very comprehensive platform that touches the whole supply chain, right? So I think people are still building these things out, and I think it's a lot of work to get there. But yeah, I think there's people are building out very big data-centric type platforms. They'll take a little while to come into our industry. But I think actually there's a flip side to this. I think a lot of smaller vendors have realized you don't need to know everything that's on Twitter. You don't need to know everything on Facebook. You need to know about this, and I will give you this.
So I look at your recap of 2015 in this industry almost as a challenge. You painted a picture that it wasn't a great year for the industry. It wasn't a horrific year, but it's definitely a year of change. There'll be more consolidation. Well, I don't want to get into 2016 yet, but is that how you summed it up? I mean, it was a challenging year for the industry.
Very much so, but I think that's a good thing, right? I mean, we're 15 years post the dot-com era. It's time for you know, a good shake-up, and we've got a lot of new customers out there looking for you know, something different, right? Instead of the same old. So yeah, definitely a challenging year, but I think that's a good thing.
Alan Pelz-Sharpe of Digital Clarity Group is our co-host here on this edition of CMS Connected. We reviewed 2015. We will look ahead with Alan at 2016. But coming up next, Amy Martin in the Vendor Spotlight segment will review Sitefinity. You are watching CMS Connected, the web content management industry's only news commentary show.
So you've got a great website. Your marketing team spends hours driving visitors to it and nurturing them into leads. And your sales team spends hours collecting, qualifying, organizing, and chasing those leads. Sales wants to focus on what they do best, selling. And marketing wants to get on with what they do best, creating innovative campaigns. But how do you make both teams happy? The solution is marketing automation.